And it is now, I'm going to think it's 12:01 uh, Eastern Standard Time. So I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Veronica Cal present.
And Laura Schifrin present. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, which is behind Veronica there, please? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to thank our veterans as well as all of those currently serving and our emergency response people as well as their families. I'd like to add a prayer today that we all are able to understand what each other is doing and that we all come to an agreement of what is best for the town of Townsend. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. Is there anyone else recording? Would you please acknowledge? Cindy King is recording. I can see that. Anyone else? There's a number of people online. Okay. There are no minutes. And Nelson, would you take over the meeting, please?
Sure, absolutely. Um, so, the reason, one of the purposes we having this meeting sort of out of cycle is the motion last week we didn't think was sufficient to sort of get the ballot question on at the annual town election. So we're kind of redoing it. The language, the motion language, as well as sharing with the public our proposed budget at the moment to close the budget, if we do get the override passed. I just want to point out that this budget is very preliminary. I'm still receiving feedback from the various departments. In fact, less than an hour before this meeting, I received some additional feedback. So it's still an ongoing process. Some departments have yet to submit their proposed changes, so I'm still incorporating that into the budget as we speak. I'm happy to report that this budget, there are no cuts to current personnel. I think there might be some folks in the senior center related to the lunch program, but other than that, there is no other current employee that will have any of their wages affected by this change. I made sure that the cuts were coming from the expense side because I want to preserve as many jobs as possible. With that said, if the override does not pass, I think cuts are inevitable and possibly even targeted layoffs. And I don't know in what departments, but given the big number that we would have to come up with, I think layoffs is probably something that we have to consider. What that would look like, I don't know. That's something we need to develop over the next several weeks, to come up with some sort of plan. But I think at the moment, this is the best we have to go on.
But we will, on April 16th at 7 p.m. at the high school, be presenting both the budget that you're looking at today, correct?
Yes.
And the budget should overrides be required, or should the override not pass?
I think the budget, if the override did not pass, it's probably kind of broad strokes of where the cuts may come from. We know we have an amount that we need to bridge. What that would look like, I think it's unknown. I think in the next, few weeks, we might have a little bit more clarity, but we probably we won't be able to maybe explicitly say on April 16th that these folks are going to cut.
Okay, let me ask the question a different way. Will we have, so the override question goes to the ballot on the 28th of April. On May 6th, will we have any more clarity than we would on April 16th?
I believe so. We'll
Really?
maybe slightly, because we still need to talk to the various unions to, come to the bargaining table to figure out what the impact would be.
And we will do that in April, correct?
Yes. Whether
Okay.
we will fully, at the end of I'm not sure we'll be able to fully achieve everything, by annual town meeting. We'll certainly try our best, but these things take time, and I just
What
don't.
I don't want to happen is that the employees at town meeting are unaware of what will happen should an override pass or not pass. What I do not want to see at town meeting is what we saw on March 10th, where we had a budget that we did work with FinCom on, and FinCom was perfectly fine with it going into town meeting. We worked together all of February and all day on March 1st to come up with a budget that was the budget we felt worked with the town. And we expected there to be an override vote to fund the schools. Since that did not happen, we are again working on the budget to call things back, and that's the budget we're going to see today. We do have a budget today that department heads, with the exception, if I understand, 2 departments.
Highway still working on it, public safety as well, but I would say.
Okay, those are the 2 departments
Yeah, so
that I thought had not yet responded, but they have until tomorrow. Correct?
Yes.
So the budget that we're going forward with today is one that is the budget that will be in place and is needed for an override.
Correct.
All right, so the one that isn't in place yet, other than we know the amount in dollars of staff hours that would need to be cut. So it's the no override. If an override does not pass, that affects the staff. And I just want to point out that the town staff, the town budget, a part that's cuttable, is much, much smaller than what the school has. In other words, we have one accounting department. We have one treasurer department. We have one town clerk. We have one building department. We don't have backups in that sense. It's probably not the right word, redundancy. We do not have redundancy.
Right.
So should an override not pass, and we have worked to get the override to the smallest amount that we can with expenses.
Sure. And I'm happy to go over it today with everyone. I'll be sharing my screen and we'll go through, some broad strokes, but we can certainly dive into some of the minutiae as well. I don't think we need to spend too much time discussing how we, cut office supplies in half. I'm happy to, but I think, some of the other cuts may warrant a little bit more discussion. So, I'll share my screen and then we can start, diving into it.
And if I may just add, our plan is, the select board's plan is to meet with finance at least once, if not twice. Again, prior to the 16th?
Oh, prior to the 16th.
Yes,
definitely.
prior to the 16th. The finance.
My conversation with the chair of finance on 3/12 was that they were meeting the first week in April. The meeting on the 25th, and I am the liaison, I was not informed of. Not the 25th, the 17th, was it the 18th?
Last week.
Same day as ours, 19th, whatever the day was, that Wednesday meeting. I did not, as the liaison to that department, I did not know they were meeting. my last conversation with the chair was that they were meeting the first week in April. So
Are they meeting again tomorrow?
they are, yes, and I did receive that.
Okay,
Did
Thank you.
receive their agenda.
okay.
So I'll start going through the budget that we have at the moment. As far as I can, I've identified everything that's been reduced with highlighted lines, so it kind of looks like a massacre if you go through it. There's a lot of lines that we had to reduce, so I'll just start at the very top. Just so you know, this column here, column G, that was the budget that we had essentially presented at the March town meeting. We didn't present the whole budget, but that column is based off of the numbers I shared at that meeting. And then the next column, column H here, these are where all the cuts we are discussing at the moment come into play. So the first line that we did make a reduction is for temporary help for the select board. We did originally have $10,000 allocated to that. We've since dropped that to zero. The community service coordinator, that was already discussed back in December that we wouldn't be funding that position in FY26 with ARPA funds. We were going to fund some of the position with general fund money, but that position is now vacant, and I think we're just not going to fund it at all, ARPA or general fund. The human resources manager position, that is at the moment fully funded in FY26 with ARPA. You can see here there was a reduction from 30,000 to zero. As you recall, the goal was to every year wean ourselves out of ARPA funding for that position to one day it being fully funded through the general fund. Given the way the budget is at the moment, we're not going to put any money towards from the general fund towards this position. It's just going to be fully funded through ARPA FY26. Office supplies, I mentioned we're cutting the select board office supplies budget in half.
Nelson, I can't help but notice that you reduced your personal service contract for 26.
No, it's still there. It hasn't been reduced. That is my scheduled salary.
Okay.
According to my contract.
Okay, because it was 135 and 25, and it's less now.
That was a different town administrator. That was the FY25 was
All right, thank you.
what
Thank
was there. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. The select board also had $3,000 for other charges. We've since reduced that to zero. So if you look as a whole, the select board has effectively reduced their budget by 20% from last fiscal year because of those changes that we just discussed. Down to finance committee, I spoke to Don about the finance committee reserve fund. He was reluctant to do so because, that's kind of like a rainy day fund in case something happens. But given the budget crunch we're in, he was able to agree to reducing it to $40,000 to help out with budget cuts to get us the number that we need to get to. Let's see here, there's no reduction there, so. Let's see. For accounting, there was a few things, office supplies, they reduced. Travel and mileage, the assistant town accountant just zeroed it out, limiting travel whenever possible. Dues and memberships, just drop it back down to the 150 that's been in previous years. And training, dropping that by a little bit, just, doing less training. So. Board of Assessors, they in their expenses, the online property card setup, it's been $650 for the last few years. They've dropped it down to 0. Office supplies got cut in half. Dues and memberships, looks like they're cutting that as well, down to 0. Training, they're cutting that down to 0 as well. So, on the treasurer collector side, equipment rentals being reduced significantly. Office supplies again. Travel and mileage, that's being dropped too, as well as training as well. So I dropped the town council legal services down a little bit. It doesn't mean we're MTC is getting a rate cut by any means. This budgeted amount includes their base as well as extra services that they might provide. So I just kind of tightened that budget a little bit. So we'll just be using them a little bit less than maybe what we were projecting. MIS originally was 165. I think 160 should be okay. Kind of level funded from last year. For replacement equipment, we've been at 25,000. I dropped it to 15,000. Mostly it's laptops and other devices that comes out of this line item. So, I'm pretty diligent about approving new equipment requests lately. So I'm certain we can make 15,000 there. The town clerk longevity, that got reduced to 0 because we're going to have a new town clerk. So there's no reason why a new employee we would have to pay them longevity. Office supplies got cut. Postage got cut as well as some training conferences for the town clerk.
I have a question on that. Town clerk postage. This came from the town clerk, I assume, correct?
It did, and I'll triple check that.
So there will be no mailings from the town clerk's office. Everything will be electronic.
Let's double check. Submittal. I just double checked. They did reduce it to 0. So
okay,
it's something they can live with. So that's what I have requested of them. So like I said, this budget is very preliminary, if we need to make changes, we can certainly do so. If certain departments, had more cuts than we were asking, maybe we can, add some.
It would, wherever someone added a cut or added funds, someone else would need to make a cut. So this is our budget and the budget on which we are requesting an override, correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right.
Let's see here, where else? Land use, I literally just got right before this meeting started, so I didn't incorporate it into it. But I will take a look at it afterwards, but I can. Yeah, it literally just came in an hour before this meeting started, so I didn't have time to make those changes. I did give folks until end of Tuesday to give me their suggested cuts. But the override amount, we kind of anticipated, some of these cuts coming in because we were still awaiting other departments.
So the 625,000 that we are requesting is less than what we know we need because you're expecting departments to further cut. Is that what you're saying?
No, right now, we're a little bit short of the 625 that's needed, but I anticipate, more feedback coming in. So we'll certainly hold to the 625, but I'm still waiting for other departments to.
So the amount that we need is more than 625.
Just a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
10, 15,000.
Just to clarify that.
But there's still more departments coming in, and like I said, one literally just came in before this meeting started, so I didn't have time to incorporate those changes into the spreadsheet at the moment. We did cut office supplies for land use, but I'll see if their recommendations also concur with that. Facilities, the superintendent had some pretty good cuts for repair and maintenance for buildings. It was originally 36,000. They dropped it to 30,000. Repair and maintenance of equipment, that's been dropped to 2,500. Professional services, that's been reduced as well. Communication, that's been reduced as well. Other supplies, that's kind of a catch-all, so.
There's services.
Yeah. Groundkeeping supplies, that's been reduced significantly. Vehicle supplies, as well as pest control. The superintendent is contemplating having the pest control less frequent, so maybe quarterly versus monthly. So that would be some savings there as well. So some pretty significant savings coming from facilities. I think it's in the magnitude of $30,000. So pretty significant. Police, there was a few. This is still kind of being debated at the moment. The energy cost. I'm not sure what the solar panels, what kind of savings we'll reap from that. So this is kind of this number may very well change, and it probably might get bumped upwards versus further down. But that's kind of unknown at the moment. Repair and maintenance of the building, that's dropped it by a few $1,000s. Office supplies that got chopped in half. Fire, that's one of the big ones I'm still waiting on.
Go back to Tina. Okay, so that was 0 at town meeting and 0 here. So we're gonna do that through warrant article and free cash.
Correct.
So,
That, that's kind of
gone.
not happen either.
Right.
Building inspector, let's see. Few changes there, some budget for the code books that's been reduced, training that's been reduced, as well as dues and memberships.
I just want to mention that on professional services, the 12,000 there is for permit link software, but there is an offset of that amount because each person that uses online permitting pays a fee, and that fee covers permit link. This just makes it visible so that you can see that this is the cost for permit link because the town has to pay permit link. But on the incoming revenue, there is a matching number for the funds that come in when people pay the fees for online permitting.
Right. Where else? Under the plumbing inspector, I guess they reduced their professional and technical services budget by half, as well as other supplies. Just a little bit of savings there. The sealer of weights and measures, let me just double check what Bob was proposing. Oh, yeah, we think we're probably gonna go with the state program, which, you could use the state's, sealer of weights and measures, and there's no charge to do something like that. I don't know operationally what that means for us, if you need to, or sign on, or, come on some sort of schedule where they come out here, but the building commissioner or inspector did propose this cut. On the electrical inspector side, a little bit of savings there, professional and technical services, as well as other supplies as well. So 6 or 700 there. We had cut the animal control professional services line. We had cut that in half. Highway, I'm still waiting on, so I just did a little bit of reduction here and there just to give us some savings. This may very well change.
Can you back up to the schools? Does he, all right, thanks. I just
So-
wanted to see that. Those are the numbers.
Okay, yeah, those numbers are year over year, the percent increase or decrease.
So March special town meeting, and now it's exactly the same as it should be. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, yeah, so highway, I reduced the energy a little bit. Repair and maintenance of equipment, as well as office supplies. But like I said, I'm still waiting for highway's actual proposed cuts. Just had a meeting with the highway superintendent earlier this morning.
I just go back to the highway management plan. I just want to say that that was requested by the highway superintendent. It's a town bylaw that was put in place, I don't know, 8 years ago or so. However, the finance committee at the time said only if there were funds available. So it's not required by the town to do that. It has been requested, and the town has maybe once or twice over the time period of the bylaw, put funds in for that. At the March 1st meeting, it was determined by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen that we could not afford the $250,000 that was requested. So you can see the zero from the prior fiscal year, the fiscal year that we're currently in was not funded in the March special town meeting, and it's still not on the budget because the town does not have that. That said, the state has increased the Chapter 90 funding, and so how much is that by? About 270,000
Somewhere around there.
over what we
Yeah,
usually get.
Yeah, it was typically we get in the low 400s. At the moment, the governor's proposal will have us, don't quote me, but somewhere over, it's around the 600-ish mark. So that's pretty significant. That's, you know.
And so that will, certainly more would be nice if we have the funds to do it, but the state money will help.
Correct. So now we're in landfill. We reduced the energy budget, repair and maintenance of the building there, professional services as well as communications. So we have some pretty decent reduction there.
Do you want to talk about trash?
So trash is included in the override at the moment. You know, we are carrying that full number.
We will be in pay as you throw, will still be in play.
Correct.
But this year we used remaining ARPA funds and some stabilization, I guess, to cover the cost of this contract. So it is included in the override. So it'll be pay as you throw and a little bit more.
Let me see. Cemetery. The poor cemetery. They had $46 in their office supplies budget, and they graciously cut it to zero.
So hopefully they have office supplies in a cupboard somewhere that can take them through the year.
Yep. Groundkeeping supplies they reduced by 2,000. Vehicle supplies they reduced by 2,000. So pretty significant percentage wise for cemetery. Let's see. Townsend Housing Authority, we reduced the office and general supplies in half. Board of Health, they really chopped down the budget here. Professional services, communications, office supplies, travel, illegally dumped items, and dues and memberships. Just pretty significant savings here. Let's verify that. Yeah, pretty significant. I mentioned earlier, the senior center, you know, I think they're looking to, I'll talk to them to see if this is what they want, but this is what they had proposed, which was, I think, cutting one day from the lunch service, so they would get rid of the Monday at the moment. Again, this is just a preliminary proposal. So that would mean
the Monday had previously been funded through ARPA. So there were ARPA funds in December that were removed from their budget for FY 26.
So so they're just making that reduction as well as doing some creative accounting, because you know they have two additional sources of revenue. The formula grant, which is, I think, $15 per senior citizen here in Townsend. It's just a number, it's just a amount that the state gives to each city and town, depending on how many seniors they have. As well as the Lowell Regional Transportation funding. So, you know, they're going to shift some of the wages, you know, to that grant. So it's now less being charged to the general fund. They reduced their training budget. They actually kept the office supplies the same, so they just reduced their training budget in lieu of the office supplies budget. Let's see. Veterans agent, we're cutting their office supply in half. Library, received some feedback from them. I think they reduced a total of $5,000 from their budget. They're in a unique situation where, you know, they can only cut so much before it becomes completely counterproductive. You know, it's not like if they reduce their budget, that's the end of it. They have so much of their services and certifications based off of their current budget. If they reduce like above and beyond a certain amount, they lose funding from, I think, either the state or federal government, which then snowballs into them losing their certification.
Which then means that if your town doesn't have a library, then we wouldn't be able to use C.W. Marr's interlibrary loan.
Correct.
Other libraries in the state.
Correct. So that would kind of make us like an island on our own, you know, along with the cut. So at that point, it's, you know, the library is probably a shell of its current self if that were to happen. So 5,000 is kind of what they were able to live with without jeopardizing all those things I just mentioned. So repair, maintenance of equipment, office supplies are reduced down to zero, as well as their budget for buying books, DVDs, CDs, you know, media of that type. Recreation, the the assistant director position, we're no longer going to hire for that at the moment. You might see here there's a dollar. We're not like being fresh or anything. It's more of Emmy wanted there to, I think, keep it there
To hold the place.
exactly. So it's really just symbolic, but we're not like being fresh or anything. But it's just to sort of keep that line active without like it disappearing. So that goes for their supplies and services as well. They basically reduce down to zero.
But should we be doing the same thing for cemetery and parks then? If this is I think that keeping the line and zero funding it for this year doesn't prevent us from funding it next year.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll chew it over a little bit.
It's only $2, but
yeah, but
it should be consistent. If we do $1 here for supplies and services, we should do the same cemetery and parks.
Yeah, so I'll work behind the scenes to see what's best. You know, just for bookkeeping, so to speak. So, but I'll circle back to the select board once I know more on that. So Memorial Day and band concerts. Right now, we have not reduced anything, but spoke to Betty May, and, you know, she's willing to make cuts where need be, including, reducing the amount of band, concerts that, is held over the summer. So maybe, instead of every week, it's every other potentially.
The thing with the band concerts here in town is that organizations use it for fundraising. And so if you lose the band concerts, you also lose that source of fundraising for other organizations in the town. Certainly, this is the override request budget. Should we not get an override, that's something that we could consider reducing.
Let's see. Flag committee, I think, you mentioned they reduced their budget significantly
Several years ago, maybe 2 years
several
ago.
years. And I do see here on the schedule that they're meeting, tomorrow. So I'm not sure what their,
Their budget had been something like 7,000 in 2022.
Oh.
And they cut it to 1,500, and it stayed that way for several years.
Yeah. So, I'm not expecting much from them, you know, they have such a bare bones budget, but if they're, if they think they can live with 1,400, okay, I'll take the $100, you know, reduction, but I'm certainly not gonna require them to, you know, do anything. Let's see here. Health insurance, we did go down slightly. I think before it was like 15.5%, you know, me and, the HR manager, you know, reduced it down to about 13.85.
By working with the MIA, correct?
Yeah, you know, just some little tweaks here and there to get it down to a more manageable figure. And, I'm also, anticipating some savings there as well because, you know, vacancies in staff, that we're not gonna, you know, fill, that previously did take health insurance. So that's a pretty significant savings. I think, you know, for a single person, just on the single plan, that's probably about 9,000 that the town is paying out of pocket because it's a 75-25 split. So, so one person not taking health insurance, at the minimum would save the town roughly about $9,000. So I'm anticipating, 2 folks not taking health insurance because of vacancies, and we don't anticipate, you know, filling it. So that's in a nutshell, sort of the exercise we went through.
So is that the entire budget?
Yeah.
The Medicare town share, wait, let me just see, from March to now.
No changes there. So
Okay.
I should probably unhighlight that. So yeah, so that's kind of, the process that I mean, as you can tell, we went through the entire budget, top to bottom. No one's, you know, salary has, you know, has been reduced because of this, except for the senior center because of the, you know, 1-day reduction in the lunch service. So, you know, that was one of our goals, I think, was to preserve as many, current employees and their salaries, as best as we could.
Can we go all the way down to the bottom? I just want to see the difference between what was presented at town meeting and what is presented now.
Yep, so those are the 2 numbers there. If you take the difference, which I will do for everyone here. yeah, about $254,000 in savings. That's slightly lower than the number I was advertising last week, which I think was around the 270 mark. But again, I'm anticipating some additional um, cost savings to come in from other departments that haven't been baked into this yet. So yeah, so I fully at the moment believe with this budget, you know, we should ask for the $625,000 override.
And I just want to reiterate that when we had the department head meeting, we gave them the charge of telling us what they could live without to help with the budget.
Yep. So this budget was, it's with basically buy-in from the department heads.
That's what we wanted.
So yeah, that in a nutshell, that's kind of the process that we went through to come up with this proposed cut budget, you know, in support of the override. No. So, Lori, did you have any additional questions, comments, or feedback?
I do not.
And just want to reiterate that April 16th at 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium, that is when, you know, we'll be presenting this, as well as, you know, what the implications are to, you know, your tax bill, which I think we said was right around $180, 182.
For the year.
Yeah, with $625,000 override. So,
And that includes trash in it. So it's roughly for the average household, $15 per month.
correct.
I just want to say that we have tried to get the override amount down to the most affordable for the townspeople. Right now, the $15 a month and will include the trash costs. And if, say, you spend $20 a month on purple bags, some people less, some people more, depending. That's around $35 a month. And yes, an override is baked in to the tax rate. So it does increase the base, I guess. So I've seen things online about year after year, it will just increase. But I guess if you're paying for private trash, the same thing is also true. Year over year, it will increase. So just know that we did try to make sure that it was as low as possible for the townspeople. And still provide the services that the town is used to.
So,
the town expects.
yeah, so in addition to the presenting this budget and, you know, sort of you know, how it would affect each household, you know, we'll certainly really reiterate to, you know, the public that should this override not pass, you know, not only is trash, you know, probably going to be cut. We're talking significant personnel reduction that will need to happen. And it's pretty significant, you know. I think you had mentioned before, you know, I don't know what the percentage is going to end up being, you know, for salary reductions, but for some folks, that salary reduction is probably not something they can financially live with. So, you know, at that point, they probably would rather be laid off, for example, and have the freedom and opportunity to find a job elsewhere. Because, you know, if we're talking a significant reduction in their, wages, people are kind of very, living pretty tightly as it is. So a reduction like that, it becomes unlivable at that point. They're probably better off finding a job elsewhere, because if you can't live with that cut, how can you make things happen? So.
Do we
I
have a
think,
motion?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lori.
I was just going to ask, do we have a motion?
We do. Are we ready for one?
I think so. By the way, this has been vetted through town council.
Right.
So we're good to go.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I move that pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21CG, the board place a Proposition 2.5 override question on the regular municipal election ballot for April 28th, 2025, in the following form. Shall the town of Townsend be allowed to assess an additional $625,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the operating budgets of the town and the public schools for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025?
And I second. Is there discussion? Hearing
No,
none,
sir.
roll call.
Veronica Cal, yes.
Laura Schifrin, yes. Thank you very much, Nelson and Veronica.
So I will, since you voted in the affirmative for this motion, I will now bring this ballot question downstairs to the town clerk so that they can put it on the annual town election ballot.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda.
There's the regular updates and reports, liaison reports, announcements, communications, volunteer response forums, and our next meeting. So, Laurie, do you want to?
I don't have
Does Sabrina have anything else for us here?
No.
Okay. If there is none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 12:54 p.m.
So moved.
I think our next meeting is listed. You did say that, right?
Yes, it's April 1st, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Okay. And then do we also have April 16th on there?
That is the community forum,
Right.
April 16th at North Middlesex Regional High School at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second on the motion to adjourn. Did you make that, Laurie?
No, I was having you make the motion. 12:50.
I did move. I so moved.
Okay, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Veronica Cal, yes.
And Laura Schifrin, yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.